Everybody, it's JetsCentral coming back with another video, and in this one I wanted to preview the Thursday night matchup between the New York Jets at the Cleveland Browns. Okay, and the New York Jets are 1-1 on the season, obviously having that fantastic victory against the Lions week 1 primetime football, and then following that game up with a pretty disappointing loss against the division rival Miami Dolphins. You take a look at Cleveland, and they're actually 0-1, but you can make the argument that the Cleveland Browns could very well be 2-0 if the ball bounces in their direction a few times, right? If they didn't screw up and shoot themselves in the foot, at certain points in both games, right? They tied against the Pittsburgh Steelers week 1, having, I think, 6 turnovers or something crazy, and then in the Saints game in New Orleans, they pushed New Orleans to the brink. They really did. And when you look at it, the Steelers were a playoff team last year, and the Saints were a playoff team last year, and they both had very, very close games against both of those teams. All right, and my message to the New York Jets, right? Even though we're coming off a pretty disappointing loss against the Dolphins, we can't hang our head in defeat. We can't just dwell on it. We have to close the book on it and move forward. Remember, it's a short week in Cleveland. Todd Bowles historically hasn't done that well when he hasn't played at MetLife Stadium. Okay, so I'm really hoping that this New York Jets team could come out with the same mentality, with the same overall fire that we did in Detroit, right? Hopefully duplicate that mentality, that mindset going into Cleveland. That's probably my number one goal that I want to see from this Jets team. I don't want to see us sloppy. I don't want to see us coming out and just not having any clue what's going on. I don't want the loss to linger, if that makes any sense. So moving on, let's talk about the offense and how I think this New York Jets offense can put points up on this Cleveland Browns defense. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, right, and I think it all stems from this, the offensive line, and we have got to protect Sam Darnold. Look at the Browns' defensive line. Myles Garrett, first overall pick. I mean, they had guys making plays in both weeks. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they were sacking Roethlisberger and making him feel uncomfortable, as well as they did against Drew Brees. So this Browns defense, this Browns defensive line, and the front seven overall, they have players in place. Like I said, Myles Garrett, Jamie Collins. I mean, they have great players. Christian Kirksey's another guy I really like. So we've got to be able to protect Sam Darnold. If Myles Garrett is just having a field day on Kelvin Beachum, that could be very problematic moving forward. If Myles Garrett is ending the day or is getting after Sam Darnold consistently, or really Larry Ogunjobi, he was another guy that I believe played at Charlotte. I liked him coming out. He showed an ability to get after the passer. So if this Browns defensive line gets after Sam Darnold, I think that could be problematic. So that's the first thing that needs to be said. We have got to protect Sam Darnold. If he can stand upright all game, and Myles Garrett and these guys, the ferocious front seven that the Browns bring to the table, they're kind of kept at bay, I think this Jets team can pick up first downs, right? Pick up yards, maybe not go for huge chunk plays, but chip away and consistently move the ball. All right, so the next point I kind of want to segue to is attacking the middle of the field, right? When you take a look at this Browns defense under Greg Williams, a guy who I like, a defensive coordinator, I think he's brilliant. This defense is somewhat weird. This is actually something I don't agree that Greg Williams does. For whatever reason, I understand the premise behind the defense that Greg Williams runs, but it looks to me like the Cleveland Browns run a very odd defensive, I think it's a base system because they run it a lot. It's basically like this angel defense where they have Jabril Peppers, a first-round pick out of Michigan, playing like 20 yards back from the line of scrimmage, right? And I understand the premise, right? You don't want to get beat deep, and you want to kind of have everything in front of the defense. It's very good for third and long situations and whatnot, but they run this consistently, right? And they have Jabril Peppers just playing so far back from the line of scrimmage. And one area where I feel as though the New York Jets can attack is the middle of the field. I think the Browns defense does a very, very good job covering deep balls over the top and balls to the outside. You look at Demarius Randall, you look at rookie cornerback Denzel Ward. I know they have another guy out there, Mitchell, number 39. His first name is slipping my mind right now, but he's a beast as well. And you cannot sleep on these Cleveland Brown cornerbacks because they do a really nice job in press coverage, especially to the outside, right, when they use the sideline to their benefit. So attacking the middle of the field, going up the seams, involving tight ends, involving guys like Quincy Enunwa, I think that could be key in a victory, trying to hope for a victory on Thursday. All right, so attack the middle of the field. This Angel defense is odd. I understand it, like I said, and I think it can be beneficial at times, but I think, and especially with Jabril Peppers, who I don't really believe is a traditional free safety. I think Peppers needs to be playing up more towards the line of scrimmage, kind of in a one of those like elephant type roles where he's like a like a box, like a hybrid, like a Deion Buchanan type of player, a Mark Barron type of player, where he's up close to the game. Because when you play that far back from the line of scrimmage all the time, you it's hard to get in the feel of the game. So use the middle of the field and attack that Angel defense at its weak spots. Over the middle of the field, use the seams, get the tight ends involved. Tomlinson, Walford, hopefully if he's playing, and Sterling. Get these guys involved, get Quincy Enunwa involved, and just attack the middle of the field and protect Sam Darnold. Those are the two keys that I feel like on offense we can do to effectively put points on the board and to move the ball up and down the field on this Browns defense. So moving on to the Jets' defensive side of the football, right? The Browns are starting Tyrod Taylor, and I know there's a lot of Browns fans out there that want to see Baker Mayfield, and rightfully so, first overall pick, Heisman winner, did this, that, doesn't turn the ball over, mobile. I love Baker Mayfield, and I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. But they're rolling with Taylor, right? The veteran guy, the guy who had a pretty solid past few seasons with the Buffalo Bills statistically. Actually was the quarterback of the Bills last year when they made the playoffs, and that's just kind of like a historic thing in Buffalo because they haven't made the playoffs in quite some time. But Tyrod Taylor is somewhat hinders an offense. He brings a lot of good things to the table. He has extreme touch on the deep ball. That's something I like. He's obviously mobile. He's probably the best running quarterback in the league. He's not so much of a dual threat quarterback. He's more of a running quarterback, and you could kind of tell or see that in Tyrod's game over the past 2 weeks. Kind of if the first read isn't there, he kind of looks to run, tucks it down, takes his eyes off the coverage, and really pulls it down and tries to go. So we can try to use that to our advantage, right? And another thing too about Tyrod is that he's on the shorter end. I actually went to a Bills-Jets game last year, the Thursday night game, and I remember standing pretty close to the sideline and looking at Tyrod Taylor. I'm like, this guy's like the size of like me and my friends. Like this guy's like 5'11", 6 foot, at most 6'1". So I think Tyrod Taylor, right, him being the short quarterback that he is, number one, he struggles throwing outside the hashes. He tends to throw over the middle of the field, the crossing routes, the mesh routes, the little checkdowns. And people look at his completion percentage, people look at his stats, high touchdowns, or not high touchdowns, but he has a lot of touchdown passes compared to interceptions. I think last year he was 14 TDs to 4 picks, which is all well and good, doesn't turn the ball over, this and that, but he doesn't take shots consistently down the field. So if you can take away this underneath coverage, if you're the New York Jets, right, especially over the middle of the field, if you can take that away, have nice zone defenses, that could be very, very good. It could bode well for our Jets D, because if Tyrod Taylor, a guy who struggles to throw on the outside of the numbers, pretty much anything except for go routes, and you shut down the middle of the field, he's going to be looking to run. And if we have our guys already in the middle of the field, it's going to be hard for the Cleveland Browns to pick up first downs. All right, that's just a fact. And another thing too is that I don't really think Tyrod can't throw the ball outside. I think his height, I don't think he can find passing lanes when throwing to the outside, right? So like curl routes, anything, 10 and outs, all that stuff, he has a very hard time doing it. So if we could put the Browns in situations where we take away the middle of the field and kind of have that quarterback spy on Tyrod, forcing him to throw outside, putting the Browns offense or the Browns wide receivers in one-on-one matchups with our good, long, athletic cornerbacks in Mo Claiborne and Trumaine Johnson, I think the New York Jets defense can have a very, very successful day. Maybe not with turnovers and whatnot, but just with the inability of the Browns to pick up first downs, right? So forcing the Browns in having the Browns not complete a lot of passes, right? So a lot of incompletions, and the clock is always stopped when the Browns have the ball, just making them not get in rhythm, kind of. I know it's kind of like I jumbled my words there, but yeah, just take away the middle of the field, kind of have a spy on Tyrod just in case he starts pulling it down and running, and forcing Tyrod to beat you outside the numbers. So that's kind of the focus on for the first point on defense. And then the second point, it's not really like a specific thing, but we need the linebackers to step up, right? We need guys like Avery Williamson, newcomer from Tennessee, Darren Lee, a former first-round pick, guys out there on the outside like Frankie Louvu, okay? Jordan Jenkins had a great game against the Dolphins, but we need the linebacking core to really step up, because to take away the middle of the field, you have got to have good linebacker play. We have got to have that. We have to trust our linebackers. I mean, take a look at the game in Detroit. I have faith that we can duplicate that performance. The Darren Lee, Avery Williamson had phenomenal games in coverage against the Lions. So if we can take away the middle of the field and the linebackers step up, which is, they showed that they can do it. I'm not just, hoping and praying that, hopefully, I really hope that the linebackers, can play at the best of their abilities this week. No, we already saw what they can do. We saw that this group, this core, this unit can play at a very high level against a good team. And the Lions they have talent. So if the linebackers step up and shut down the middle of the field, kind of branching it off, the first point here, and like I said, forcing Tyrod outside the numbers, stopping the clock. There's a lot of incompletions, making Taylor feel a little uncomfortable, taking away the whole inside the hashes. That, I think, is going to be key for this Jets defense to stop this Browns offense. But like I said, it's in Cleveland. We cannot dwell. We cannot hang our heads in defeat from last week's game against Miami. We can't do that. We have to come out with the same fire. We have to come out with the same intensity and believe that we are going to win this game. So that's kind of my initial thoughts on this Jets-Browns game. It's a short week. We have to get prepared. We have to be ready. And taking a step back, looking at the big picture, it's our third game within 10 days. Somewhat odd by the schedule makers, but whatever it is, what it is. We're at the tail end. We're at the tail end of that weird stretch here, and then it'll kind of go back into like having the normal schedule of an NFL team. So let's get through this week. Let's go into Cleveland, play with fire, play with intensity, play smart football, and go out and get a W. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. How the Jets can put up points on this Browns defense, and how the Jets defense can negate this Browns offense. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and go Jets.